Okay, welcome everyone. Again, this is Kim Seymour. We are recording for the Emerging Leader Sponsor Alignment Call today. Hopefully you can all view the presentation that we're going to use to walk through the materials on my screen. Really appreciate everyone joining today. Want to take a minute and welcome some of our new sponsors. First, I'll just give a shout out to Glenn Robinson, who is our new executive sponsor from Exelon Power. We're so excited to have Glenn joining us. He is replacing Vicki Will, who was our sponsor pretty much since the inception of the Emerging Leader Program with Exelon Power. So, Glenn, just want to give you a moment if you wanted to give any welcome comments to the group.
Yeah, just great to be part of the group. Looking forward to meeting with the teams and with the future leaders. So that's it.
Great, thanks, and appreciate you being on. We are going to be getting a new site sponsor at Gannett. We had some turnover there and promotions with Paul Swift. And then also at 9 Mile Point, Alex Dario is moving on to Fitzpatrick. So Bob Buglehall will be joining us at 9 Mile, and we'll be letting everyone know who's joining us from Gannett. And then also Ray Hall at Braidwood has joined us. And in Exelon Power, Mary Helen Marsh and Brian Bennett are going to be two additional new sponsors to help out Ken Paletti with the class of 2018. So looking forward to having their support as well. And sad, of course, to be losing Archie and Jim. So feel free to use this list, this updated list, to reach out to each other, especially those who are new to the group. Use this as an opportunity to share some best practices with each other. We still have that Fleet Best Practices spreadsheet on the Emerging Leader SharePoint site, so you can head out to check that out, see what's already out there, and please continue to keep that updated as a mechanism for sharing your best practices about what's working and not working, especially as we work through the Emerging Leader program redesign. All right, so in terms of what we're looking to cover today, the purpose of this call is really just to give you a sense of what's coming up to wrap up the class of 2017. We'll do a quick look ahead of what we're working on for the class of 2018. And then as we talk through these things, we'll chat a little bit again about your roles and responsibilities as a sponsor, so that after this call, you should be able to provide some clarification to your senior leadership team peers at staff meetings or whatever forum is appropriate to help them really understand the redesign that we're going through and what this new program looks like for the emerging leaders. We understand that with any major program change like this, there is confusion, there are questions. So, ideally, you'll be able to answer those questions from anyone at your site, including some guidance for the emerging leaders themselves. Our goal today is also to help prep you for some of the conferences that we have coming up in May and June, and then also ensure that you are equipped to give any conference debriefs afterwards. And just generally, how to best support your emerging leaders. So just want to pause here and see if there are any questions before we get started or anything else that you guys were hoping we would be addressing today. Okay. Well, if you think of anything, feel free to shout out as we go here. So moving on, just wanted to give a quick overview of the 2017 calendar year schedule. So the You Are Here star for April shows that right now we are in the midst of transitioning, preparing for this May conference for the class of 2017 as we transition them to their capstone period. So those conference boxes that you see in blue on the top are all for the class of 2017 who graduate this year in 2017 in December. So in order to graduate or get credit for the program, they'll have to complete their capstone period, including the capstone presentation. And this is that period, the 6-month time frame, where they'll be going through application of learning, and that would include the mentoring program and also their 360 assessment, in addition to the actual experiences that they'll be going through to apply what they learned in the conferences. So we'll be talking about that a little bit in more detail. And then just want to highlight also, so those boxes in green along the bottom are the dates that we have programs running for the class of 2018. So the class of 2018 starts officially their first GenCo conference in June. So we have back-to-back conferences in May and June, one for class of 2017, one for class of 2018.
Hey, Kim.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Are you changing your view here on Skype? I'm only seeing the title page.
Yes. I have been trying to click the link again. Is anybody else having trouble seeing it?
Yeah, I see the same thing. Just seeing the title page, Kim.
Okay.
If you have two monitors, that might be why.
Thanks, Katie. I'm not that savvy with it. Let me just try this again here. Make sure we're all seeing the same thing. All right. How about now?
Much better.
Okay, good. So just want to make sure we had that clarification about what was for class of 2017 dates and expectations, and then also what we have coming up for class of 2018. And I'll point out these are just what we have going on for the calendar year of 2017. So class of 2018, the box is in green where we start in June. They have 3 conferences in 2017, but they also have their 4th and final conference in January of 2018, and their capstone period would start after that point. All right, so let's talk first about this May conference that we have coming up, May 9th and 10th in the West and May 17th and 18th in the East. Again, this is the final conference for the class of 2017 before they move into their capstone period. So during this conference, what we'll be doing in terms of agenda is wrapping up the program where, if you recall, the first year of the program is really all about leadership of self. And as they progress throughout the program, they're learning about the evolution of the leader, how to lead others, and ultimately also how to lead an organization. So this conference is meant to be kind of a catch-all of anything in that step progression of the evolution of a leader that we haven't covered yet under the new program design, and to give them the last punch of these are really the qualities. This is the culmination of your experience that you'll walk away and be able to apply everything that you've learned and put a nice, neat little bow on it. So we're going to be covering topics like trust, communication, and influence. We'll be also going over some more tactical things related to what we expect from them as far as their mentoring experience and their 360 assessment. And of course, as we always do, we'll be providing some state of the business updates as well. We'll also be recapping what they learned in March and how they've applied those learnings. A shorter version, if you were at the March conference, of that Your Journey presentation. And then we'll be hearing from some mid-level manager leaders who will be supporting us that day, the first day of the conference as well. We're calling it Leadership Unplugged, to get the raw story from those leaders who are in the roles that the emerging leaders will be stepping into, hopefully, in the near future. And then we have the networking dinner at Maggiano's following day 1 before we dive into day 2. Because it is their final conference and our last time together in a networking format, we are inviting some executives to attend. We also have some other guests who will be speaking at the conference, as well as some of our peers in TMOD out east who are possibly going to be joining us. So really looking to give the emerging leaders the opportunity to see some new faces, network, talk about their experience in the program, as well as what their plans are for the capstone period and their final presentation. So we're hoping to get some good support for that. And, you know, if your site's not in an outage, if you have somebody, a peer, director level, or above, that you can bring with you to the networking event, Please do that. I think it would be great to get some additional support from the sites if possible. What I would just ask is we do need to have an accurate head count for the restaurant. So if you are going to do that, if you found somebody that can commit, to go ahead and forward the invite to them and make sure that they RSVP yes or no. So that is one action that we would like to lean on for you guys for the May conference, other than the presence of your beautiful faces at the actual conference as table coaches. TMOD working team, anything that you want to add about the May conference?
Not on my end, Kim.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Any questions about that from the sponsors?
Hey, Kim, Brian Bennett, just for clarification, for the sponsors for the class of 2018, you're not expecting them to attend the May conference, is that correct?
That's correct. You can feel free to join us if you wish, but you are not expected to be there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for asking that question, Brian. Okay, so once the, let me go back here. So as you can see from this timeline, again, just trying to be super clear about this, once the emerging leaders in the class of 2017 complete this conference, they start their capstone period. So I want to take just a second to talk about this because we did already cover it at the March conference, and then we are going to be doing a recap call of that immediately following this call. So you can stay on the line for that as well. But just making sure you understand high level that the capstone period is a 6-month experience. You can read more about it by looking at the program guide, where the emerging leaders are applying what they're learning in some experiential learning activities. So that's where you would go to that library of ideas of capital projects they can get involved with, special outage roles, other like diesel outage leads, shift leads, whatever it can be that will help tailor their experience in a way that, with a special project or role where they can practice what they've learned in a real world situation and then do it in a way where at the end of their experience, they'll be able to give a presentation back to the executive team that really says that, this is what I took away from the program, and I've been able to give a return on investment back to the business, and here's how. So again, we'll be talking about that a bit more on the next call that immediately follows this one. And you can look for additional details in the program guide as well. Wanted to just pause here real quick, though, and see from the group sponsors, has anyone had any initial conversations with any of their emerging leaders about what that capstone experience may look like, or even the presentation that they'd be willing to share with the group?
This is Tony at Quad. We really haven't, because we just got out of the outage where I would expect some of those things. We did use some of our ELs as in this type of role during the outage, but in terms of how to fold it into the presentation, we have not got that far yet.
Okay.
Hey, Tim from Oyster Creek, maybe just to share one. The unique situation we're in with decommissioning and some of the challenges in regard to inventory reductions and being able to sell off some of the equipment, et cetera, that we have, some of the inventory. That one we're forming at least one or two people, and I know the capstones can either be individual or that makes sense. It can be a group of them that can work on it together, but we're lining up to have a capstone tied to kind of inventory reduction as we decommission the plant. So it's kind of I think an interesting one, because it's not necessarily just a day-to-day, or it's not necessarily a day-to-day type plant issue. It's going to bring in some of the financial aspects of the business and bring in skills in regard to interfacing with all the groups around what's needed to continue to maintain the plant reliable. So I think that's going to be a good one for us at Oyster.
That does sound like a good one, Jim, because it seems like there's probably a couple of different elements of that. And that can be tailored to each emerging leader's development goals in a way that allows them to be very purposeful about the work that they're doing in their capstone experience. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. So in terms of your role, other than helping the emerging leaders identify those experiences, making sure it makes sense, like we just highlighted, with their development goals, and of course ensuring that that aligns with their manager's vision of what their development goals are. One of the other things that the emerging leaders will be leaning on you for, although they have the ultimate action, is to help coordinate the date for their capstone presentation. So we're recommending an October, November timeframe. That'll give them enough time to get some of that experiential learning under their belt, complete some mentoring, their 360 assessment, give them something to really talk about. So again, that's a recommendation, certainly flexibility there, but the idea is that they are going to be able to present not just to the site SLT, but in an environment where they have some corporate executive presence. And the reason for that is that the site SLT should already know what the emerging leaders are working on. It won't be anything new for them. So the senior executives at corporate want to know what the emerging leaders are working on. And this will give them an opportunity to showcase their work, but also really show off the program in a way that allows the executives to see, what we're putting our money towards with these guys. So just moving on here to wrap up your role for the class of 2017. I hit that last bullet in terms of capstone, but just making sure if you can, we've already talked with most of you about your attendance at the May conference, but planning that final conference debrief with the team to review the collective learnings, making sure you're continuing to keep communication open with the managers, as we talked about with those capstone experience plans, and then for those who are in nuclear, helping the managers where needed with any of the talent MRM preparations. And for Brian and Archie and those who are in power, that'll take a little bit of a different shape. But if for those in nuclear, you wanted to take a look at the last slide of this deck, which is also in the meeting notice, you can see, if you haven't already gone through a talent MRM, although I think most sites already have, what type of information would be included in there. And then just want to highlight also, when the emerging leaders, after this May conference, they will be starting to look for dates for their capstone presentation. Once they identify their date, they will log it in a spreadsheet on the emerging leader SharePoint site. And once they do that, they will then be able to set up their debrief from the 360 assessment with TMOD. So TMOD will help get that set up, and then the debrief will occur once they have their presentation scheduled. Katie, I see you pinging me here. You don't see the presentation view, but the PowerPoint is still on slide 3. Okay. Is everybody having trouble seeing the slide deck again?
I just put it up manually, Kim, because I was having some problems.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea for those trying to follow along. I'm on slide 6 here. Just recapping here, expectations for you all and how you can best support the emerging leaders. And again, that's slide 6. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
All right, so any questions about this before we move on to the class of 2018 discussions? Again, certainly take a gander at the Emerging Leader Program Guide again. If you do have any questions, you can also reach out to me or Katie or anyone else on the working team. Okay. All right, so moving fast and furious, we won't have time for another alignment call before the June conference, so we're going to talk about that just quickly here and now. So with the class of 2018, at this point, they've been nominated, They've met with their manager to review the program guide. They've been matched with a mentor, and they've gone to orientation and the corporate conference. So even though they haven't started in the GenCo conferences, they've had a lot going on already in the program. Anyone who was at that corporate conference, any highlights you want to share from what you experienced?
This is Tony Scott. I think the 18s got a lot out of the fact that they got to meet people from outside nuclear and outside the GenCo as far as that's concerned, and I think that was kind of a eye-opener, and I think they got a lot out of that discussion.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, that's some of the feedback we get from them, is that the value is really in expanding their network, realizing how big Exelon really is, and that there really are a lot of opportunities, not just career-wise, but if you have questions, reaching out and benchmarking people outside of nuclear or outside of power. Okay, so their first conference, you can see the dates here, very much back-to-back with the May conference, so have less than a month runtime to prep us. So what we'll be doing at that conference, let me just skip ahead real quick to the next slide, slide 9, to give you an overview of their program. So learning the business and your role in it is the June focus. We'll be building on what they learned from the corporate conference. From a business perspective, giving them an overview of the Emerging Leader Program for generation to make sure that we're very clear and aligned on what the expectations for them are. And then we'll be starting off a little bit of the leadership of self with strategic thinking and planning. We'll be talking about our talent strategy and how they, as emerging leaders, fit into that, how they can tailor their IDP to fit into that. And then we're going to kick it off with the program off for them with that networking module that we did actually just at this last conference with the class of 2017 in March. The recommendation from the class of 2017 there, the feedback they provided was, we should do this first. Help us network with each other, connect with each other right from the beginning, so that we have that sense of feeling more like a cohort and a team as we go through the entire program. So that did get bumped up. And you can see here on this slide 9 really what the rest of the curriculum looks like, but wanted to just highlight that for you. And you can look at that in the program guide as well. So going back to slide 8, which shows the timeline, but also the sponsor roles and responsibilities for the class of 2018. Of course, attending those conferences in a table coach capacity, letting me know if you're able to make it or not, so we know who we can leverage for what. And then, for example, one of the other actions for you guys on this call is that we're actually looking for one of you or a couple of you to let us know if you would be willing to speak at the conference about a story or a situation you had that demonstrates inclusive leadership. Really just the D&I story to highlight for the emerging leaders, why we can be setting ourselves up to fail if we all think the same way. And maybe a situation where you brought somebody into a group that didn't have the same level of education or industry experience or experience working at all. And by making them feel included, making it feel safe for them to contribute, how did that person ultimately help the group add value, come up with a new idea, weaving in concepts of innovation and that inclusive leadership strategy. So no need to volunteer on the phone right now necessarily, but maybe just give that request some thought. Shoot me an email if you think that you have a story that we could use, and we'll circle back with you and let you know if it's something that we think would fit in there. For the rest of the conferences, for all the conferences for class of 2018, wanted to take a minute and talk about attendance. So this is something that the working team has talked about quite a bit, and really looking for you to advocate for the emerging leaders to be attending the conferences. The expectation is that attendance is mandatory. We nominate these employees for this amazing development program, so we need to be supporting their attendance. And sometimes that may mean stepping away from the outage for a day or two, because at this point we cannot replicate what is learned in the conference and the experience that provides for them. And if one session is missed, that is now 25% of the program. So, any time that there may be a conflict coming up, we really need to look closely at that and figure out if there is a way that we can accommodate them, sending them to the session in the other region, or figuring out if there's some things that can be moved around. And then I do hear some other individuals joining us for our next call. So I'll just kind of wrap this up here, but wanted to just highlight other responsibilities where you just want to continue to have career mapping conversations with the emerging leaders, but making sure you're connecting with their managers first so that there's an aligned message. And then, as I was saying earlier, just really being that program advocate, talking it up, sharing the program guide, and helping sponsor and promote your emerging leaders at the sites. So I am going to leave it at that and just pause for a second and see, do we have any questions from the emerging leader sponsors about anything that we just covered? All right. Well, if you do have anything, certainly feel free to give us a shout. And for those of you who we will see at the May conference, looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Really excited about all these changes and appreciate everyone's participation today. Thanks so much. End of call.
Thanks. Bye.